hosted by the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle and SAS, Seattle Academy of Arts and Sciences. You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station, and we will hold it down with several different candidates with your monitor, Thomas Brown, for the next couple of hours. So keep it locked right here. Here's Thomas.
Good evening, everyone. I am Thomas Brown. I am the president of Zeta Pi Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated here in the greater Seattle area, and honored to be your moderator this evening. I'm going to be the moderator tonight for the Snohomish County Black Candidate Forum. This is a series of forums to have a conversation with the Black legislative candidates of the Puget Sound. The first forum was the candidates for Pierce County area. Last week, we had the pleasure of having many of the candidates from the King County area. And tonight, we have dynamic candidates for the Snohomish County. Again, this series is brought to you by the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Zeta Pi Lambda Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Seattle Alumni Chapter, Beard Bar Place, and Seattle King County NAACP. We also would like to thank Rainier Avenue Radio for broadcasting this evening. This series is primarily to inform you about the importance of local elections and positions, how these key issues such as climate change, housing affordability, and police accountability are influenced from these positions. This is not, and I repeat, this is not intended to persuade or endorse any candidates, but simply to show you how representation matters for Black Washington families. To find out more what your Urban League is doing to ensure every person votes and to check your voter information, please go to urbanleague.org and look for the Civic Engagement tab. We will be accepting questions this evening from the audience. To submit a question, please put it in the Facebook comments, and the moderators will do their best to get those questions to me. We will be taking a short break to grab our first candidate, which is going to be Eric Brown. Eric is going to be running for the state representative of the 46th district in North King County and part Snohomish County.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.rainieravenueradio.world.
Welcome to the Fitness Corner. I'm your host, Mark Bryant, and you're going to get a whole total body workout on my show, starting off with a warm-up, aerobics, strength training, cool down, and stretching every Friday from 11:30 to 12 right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.
This is the news on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Following an internal investigation, the Washington Attorney General's office announced that it has fired senior criminal investigator Cloyd Steger due to allegations of misconduct towards a restaurant waiter wearing a Black Lives Matter button. After posting a picture of his receipt from Fish Peddler Restaurant in Tacoma to Facebook, the receipt in question reading, quote, BLM button equals no tip, unquote, and quote, that's how socialism works, unquote, and later taking the post down, Steger was placed on administrative leave back in September. In the Attorney General's 11-page summary of the internal investigation, the office said that the incident, quote, irreparably compromised Steger's credibility and brought significant disruption and embarrassment to the office, unquote. Per the Seattle Times, Steger, through his attorney, Steve Fogg, announced last Thursday that he will contest the dismissal. Fogg later cited in an email that, quote, terminating Cloyd is both a mistake and illegal. The Attorney General is firing Cloyd not because he didn't do his job, he did it well, and not because he didn't tip a waitress or raised his voice. The Attorney General fired Cloyd for expressing political opinions as a private citizen, with which some members of the Attorney General's office disagreed, unquote.
And that's your news on Rainier Avenue Radio.
RainierAvenueRadio.world is your community radio station. We are a 24/7 internet radio station and multimedia network dedicated to amplifying the diverse voices of our Seattle communities and beyond. You'll hear a range of music, sports, regional traffic, local and national news, happenings around Greater Seattle, and talk shows including political, current events, diverse languages, and children's programming created by members of our communities. And we we will continue to broadcast live from our communities. We also provide digital media training to community members to become their own content creators. Check out the CADMA page on our website. You can hear us online at RainierAvenueRadio.world or on TuneIn. And follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, RainierAvenueRadio.world.
October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. If you or someone you know is a victim of domestic violence, please visit our website at www.RainierAvenueRadio.world for further information about resources and who you can contact regarding domestic violence. There is also a national domestic violence hotline, 1-800-799-7233. Again, the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233.
You're listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world.
That's right. You're listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world, your community radio station, stationed right in Seattle. You are tuned in, of course, to the Snohomish County Black Candidate Forum with 3 candidates for you, with your moderator, Thomas Brown, all part of our Community Election Connection. You can tune in later this week to a couple debates that we will be hosting on Thursday at 8 o'clock. You can tune in to the Lieutenant Governor debate right here on Rainier Avenue Radio. And then on Friday at 6 o'clock, tune in for the Superintendent of Public Instruction of Washington State debate, which will be happening at 6 o'clock. Now for Thomas Brown with our first candidate of the evening, Eric Brown.
Thank you, and welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us again for our Black Candidate Forum. We are having a conversation with these candidates that are running for Snohomish County. As a reminder, we will be taking questions from the audience once again. Feel free to send those questions in through the Facebook video, and we'll get those answered after Mr. Brown gives us an opportunity to answer a few questions that we've already prepared for him. Eric Brown is running to represent the 46th district, which is North King County and part of Snohomish County. Mr. Brown comes from a CDL driving background. He has fought for educational options for parents to ignite a thriving workforce. Mr. Brown wants to work together to embrace differences in people around him for the common good. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Eric Brown. Eric, how are you this evening? I think you're on mute there. There we go.
We're doing well this evening. Thank you for moderating and hosting this great event, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to bring my voice to the table.
Absolutely, and we're glad to have you. We do have a few rules for the forum tonight. We're going to ask you 3 questions to respond to that we've already prepared. You will have 2 minutes for each question. After our 3 prompted questions, we will also take 2 additional questions from the audience, and you will also have 2 minutes for each of those individual questions. Any questions about the process so far?
No, it sounds like a clear, straightforward process.
Okay, great. And Mr. Brown, thank you. So the first question that we have for you tonight, 2020 has been a different year than most in many ways, with many areas of our lives affected. What made you want to run for state representative now during such a tumultuous time?
The call to public service is a call that is vital to the way that we live our lives, the way that people and their needs are met under ordinary circumstances, if there is such a thing as ordinary circumstances. We most definitely are in the midst of some of the most extraordinary times of our lives, times of generations. And the urgent call for public service is, I would say that it is highlighted. Like I said briefly a moment ago, there's always a need for public service, but I believe it is highlighted. So it is these times, this pandemic that we're going through, the divisiveness of the political conversation that is happening, and the questions surrounding health and how are we going to get the equipment that we need to live well and to have robust health and to promote robust health. And it's in these pandemics that, these types of situations that we need to answer that question and that we need people to step up to the plate. So I'm glad for all incumbents, and I'm glad for new candidates like myself who are stepping up to take part in that conversation and to give people options, because if we don't have options in these extraordinary times, then what valuable service, what public service are we offering in ordinary times when the solutions seem easier to find?
Thank you. And that's a great segue to our second question, because at this time, acquisition of services is tremendously important. So that leads to our second question here. Many Washingtonians are currently struggling to pay their bills, and currently there is an absence of federal assistance. What would you do as a state legislator to keep Washington families afloat?
I recognize the fact that for whatever reason, I believe much of it is just the rancor and the volatility of the political conversations that I was talking about, and how nasty those conversations have gotten. And in the nastiness, stepping up to help providers provide, and stepping up to help people who do their public service honorably every day, to step up and provide those services so that no one is left in the lurch, and so that no one is left with a blind spot. No one's left with more money than month. So the first thing that I would do in making sure that no one is left behind and making sure that no one is without what they desperately need is just to call attention to the fact that, sure, we may have political differences and we may have different ideas and different viewpoints, but when all we hear are combative viewpoints and people in need were disserviced because they did not get their needs met, I'm just going to call that out. So I believe it's important to call that out. The second thing that I would want to do is, as a legislator, it is a premier role to make sure that everyone is working. So obviously, if you are if you're not able to work, if the pandemic is such that it's just not safe to work, then absolutely, there's no good reason to put someone in the way of safety. But if there is not a clear and present danger for people working, then it's just very important that people are at work. That's where people receive their benefits. That's where people receive their access to healthcare. And there's no good reason to cut that off if there's not a clear and present danger. So getting people to work and allowing people to meet that need. And then thirdly, before my time is up, I am a strong proponent of a COVID-19 educational credit for families who are not getting any kind of credit or any kind of reimbursement of the tax money that they're paying into for education. And in Seattle schools, there's a $20,000 per student expenditure, and parents aren't getting any of that, and instruction's online. That needs to end. A credit needs to work that process to make that happen.
Well, great. That's a great segue into your last prepared question. At this time, you mentioned about access to educational credits, and that is what our third question relates to, which is education. As the school year starts virtually this year, Many families worry about their students' academic success. What is needed to ensure that the achievement gap does not widen as a result of this virtual process? 2 minutes, I remind you.
Thank you for the reminder. So as I mentioned, the educational credit is what I believe absolutely necessary. Parents and families are paying into the system in order to get a robust education and an education that prepares students for the workforce. And that is just not happening. The virtual online environment in which education is now happening is only a symptom of that. The 2019 report card from OSPI shows that 60% of students are not meeting national literacy standards, 50% of students are not meeting national math standards, and that is just unacceptable. So I think we need to acknowledge that the unions are just not getting the job done. We need to provide the credit for immediate, and then we need to get on board with educational credits, which is a national conversation, so that people can have the finances that they need to get the education, public or private or religious or whatever they deem is best for their family. 89% of Black families are supportive of educational credits. I am. I'd like that conversation to move forward. I'd like to see that happen for the 2022 school year.
Okay, thank you. We do have a question in from the audience. You mentioned earlier regarding healthcare. You stated that you want access to healthcare, and unfortunately, I don't think members of the audience heard what your specific goals were. So can you state what your goals are as a legislator to ensure equitable access to healthcare is available in the state of Washington?
Absolutely. And I do admit that there are a number of conversations that are happening on this issue of affordable access to healthcare. I was reached out to by a group that is having a great conversation about affordable access to dental care, and their solution is to make the dental hygienist profession one that does what traditionally a certified dentist would do, and by opening that up and reducing the standards, then now has paid professional trained dental professionals, dental hygienists, and people in that profession stepping in to serve communities that historically were underserved. I think that is a great conversation. I think that is something that we can easily make happen, that we can easily get behind. And then I realized that the dental profession is only a portion of the entire medical profession, but based on that and based on the unique needs of people all across our state, I'd love to have conversations about nurse practitioners and people who have those types of professions stepping in where traditionally doctors stepped in, with a willingness to serve underserved communities, with a willingness to serve communities of color, with a willingness to provide options so that people of color are not priced out and they're not hearing, because of your poverty and because of your income level.
Sure.
This is what we're forcing upon you.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the answer to that question. We have another question from the audience going back to education. Can you explain the education credits a little bit more? Exactly what is education credits and what would it do? When you said you'd like to see more of that and you'd like to bring that to the table, what is it and what would be the benefit to the people?
Absolutely. So there are two pieces. So the COVID-19 educational credit is a credit that I propose of $4,500 to $11,000. The exact amount that a family would receive is based on the level of education and the level of funding that is required for the schools to provide. And so if there's a required level of 4,500, then that's what a family would receive, up to 11,000. That is a one-time tax credit to credit people for the fact that they're not receiving the education that they would receive with in-person instruction due to the pandemic. And then the second piece of that is there's a conversation going. People usually refer to it as school choice. I prefer not to refer to it as school choice. The reason being, for those of us who are familiar with segregation and how segregation worked, segregation puts us in the mind of the school decided, therefore communities of color didn't receive an education, and that's not what it's about. So I like to call it educational options. And so educational options is essentially money that is made available for families for education that goes directly to families, as opposed to the money that goes to the school systems. And families use it as they see according for academics and for school-related programs such as athletics. And they use it where they like.
Excellent. So that's one of the initiatives that you would be trying to bring forth should you get elected. Is that correct?
Without a doubt.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of our prepared questions and the questions that we have from the audience. I'd like to give you 2 minutes to share any final comments that you have for any of our listeners that did not come up in the questions that we asked that you believe is important for people to consider in consideration of your candidacy for this office.
Absolutely. I appreciate this 2-minute opportunity to just make a closing remark and to just put some punctuation marks on the comments that I made previously. Once again, I just thank you for moderating, and I thank Rainier Avenue Radio for just this opportunity. So with that said, I think it's very important to have conversations such as what we're having, where there's not rancor, there's not just a high level of volume without substantive policy on substantive issues such as healthcare and access to healthcare, education and access to education, and the issues that we discussed this evening. And addition to that, I just think that it is also necessary to bring new voices into the conversation. I am running with my eye on the history of the fact that the 46th district calls itself progressive, though we've never had an African-American representative in our district. I strongly wish to change that. I strongly wish to bring a number of level-headed voices into the conversation to talk about how to lift up communities of color, to talk about how to just press us forward, moving forward, especially on the educational options issue, to just bring us to a point of success and prosperity like we've never had before.
Well, thank you. And Mr. Brown, we thank you for your time. I believe our listeners will find this opportunity very helpful to hear about your platform, to hear your perspectives and your goals. And we want to wish you the best of luck in your candidacy for the 46th District of North County and part of Snohomish County. Thank you again.
Thanks so much.
Rainier Avenue Radio.World, breaking radio boundaries.
I'ma keep on running, cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
Lock in fresh juice with the newest hip-hop and R&B.
Every Wednesday night from 9 to 11 p.m.
on Rainier Avenue Radio.
You know we got the dopest artists rocking with us every single week with myself, D-Money.
Taylor Hart.
And Pint-Sized Patron. This is Fresh Juice every Wednesday. It's Trilltopia.
Seattle Theater Group is holding video auditions for the 20th annual More Music at the More Artist Development Program. Individual musicians from all genres, ages 14 to 21, can submit video submissions until October 30th. Benefits for artists selected include a professionally produced virtual performance at the iconic Moore Theater and opportunities to collaborate safely in person, receive payment, and mentorship from local and national musicians. More information on More Music at the More and the virtual event available at stgpresents.org.
This is the news on Rainier Avenue Radio. Black Players for Change, a group of Major League Soccer players, has teamed up with LeBron James-led nonprofit More Than a Vote to encourage voting in the November 3rd election. According to ESPN, Black Players for Change includes more than 170 MLS players and staff members. The group, which also seeks to fight voter suppression, has already signed up more than 10,000 poll workers. It has also pledged to help voters in Houston's Harris County with rides to NRG Arena, the county's lone ballot drop-off location, and campaign for the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition's efforts to pay off court fines and fees for former felons who have completed their sentences. Black Players for Change recently dedicated its first mini pitch in New Jersey. In a partnership with the U.S. Soccer Foundation, BPC plans to install 12 mini pitches in Black communities across the country to encourage kids to play soccer. And that's your news on Rainier Avenue Radio.
This is your Rainier Avenue Radio.World community update on education companies offering free subscriptions due to school closings. You can access a list of over 1,000 free education resources at www.amazingeducationalresources.com and also join the Amazing Educational Resources Facebook group.
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at RainierAvenueRadio.World. RainierAvenueRadio.World, your community radio station here in Seattle, here for the Snohomish County Black Candidate Forum. You're hearing from several candidates that are running to represent you in the state representative here in Washington State. We'd like to thank our sponsors real quick. The Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, the Seattle Academy of Arts and Sciences, and Shunpike. A reminder, you can download our app to listen live to our station 24/7. Just search Rainier Avenue Radio in iPhone and Android users. It's free and it's easy to use. One touch and you're already listening. All right, we're going to go to our second candidate right now, Shirley Sutton, and our moderator, Thomas Brown.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome back to the King County Black Candidate Forum, brought to you by the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Zeta Pi Lambda Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Seattle Alumni Chapter, Bird Place, and Seattle County NAACP. I am Thomas Brown, your host for this evening / moderator. Next up, we have candidate Shirley Sutton. Shirley is running for the 32nd Legislative District, which is in North King County and South Snohomish County. Ms. Sutton is originally from Yakima, where her parents were denied Black financing from their grocery store. She believes that now more than ever, we need to stand by each other to meet the needs of the community. Her work has focused on labor relations and diversity, as well as cultural trainings at Edmonds Community College. Please welcome Ms. Shirley Sutton.
Well, thank you so much for this evening. This is really exciting to be able to talk to sororities and fraternities, students who are really seriously thinking about maybe going into politics one day. And I think, with the youth that we have now, that I'm just so thankful to see so many coming forward and claiming their land, claiming their position, and trying to be more inclusive and equitable. So thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Sutton. We're really glad that you can join us. Our forum for tonight is we have 3 prepared questions for you that we've put together in advance. You'll have 2 minutes each to answer each individual question. And then after those 3 prepared questions, we will be taking questions from the audience, should there be any. and then you will have 2 of those questions. Again, 2 minutes each to answer each one of those questions. Do you have any questions before we get started on the process?
I think I understand what your program is. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Our first question for you tonight. This is your first time running for state legislator. How has the journey been with COVID-19? And do you have any future advice for candidates tonight?
Well, campaigning during this pandemic means a lot of Zoom meetings, but I did get sole endorsements from 32nd LD, the Snohomish and King County Democrats, and am now in general election. This is not bad for a grassroots campaign. People are saying that they are afraid of losing their health care along with their jobs. That's why we need single-payer health care. My advice for young people, especially the young Black and Brown students I see here tonight, is to make your presence known. Every campaign is an opportunity to fire up a team, share your issues, and refine your talking points. It's a very deep dive to decide on policy points, to look at past legislation, and to understand how power works, and to get a clear idea about why things are or are not working. My campaign is all volunteers, and I do not accept corporate PAC money, which is known as dark money. My advice is that for young folks to get going, work on a campaign, and put somebody up for election who can carry your issues forward. These are really serious times, and we need to use every avenue possible. I'm so inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement, the youth-led movement for climate, and the unity of Native tribes protecting land and water. I am encouraged to see more young people run for office who are speaking with such clarity, such sense of purpose and history, and about their vision for a more inclusive, democratic, and just society. Also, ask someone you admire to mentor you. My grandmother Magnolia was my first mentor and taught me to stand up for the rights of all community people.
I love that. Thank you so much for that answer. You know, speaking of families, that leads us to our second question. One of the things that is very heavy on many families' minds is that they are scared. They are wondering what is going to happen to their kids next in terms of school. They want to make sure that their kids can go to school, that they'll have a career, that they're going to continue to get a good education, and most importantly, financially, that they can have a roof over their head. What would be your goals as a state legislator to ensure that Washington adults, youth, and families are able to stay afloat during such difficult times?
Well, I'm running to put systems in place to keep people afloat and put a roof on every head. My opponent said that there has to be some austerity cuts in 2021. This is just immoral. When there are billionaires in our states that just don't really pay little or no taxes. The only cuts I support would be cutting tax exemptions for big businesses. King County just raised sales tax for housing, and this is very regressive tax which hurts low and middle income households. My solution is fair taxation for all, a Green New Deal, police accountability, and a state bank. So we can stop paying billions in debt to Wall Street banks. A state bank can offer low history loans to small businesses and for community development. This would be beneficial to our every community. Our state economy has been hit hard with this pandemic. This is on top of gentrification and homelessness and is devastating for Black and Brown communities. I will invoke the state constitution, which empowers the state to build public housing and to finance it. I will promote public housing and public lands instead of giving it to private developers who eventually profit and nothing comes back to the state. We have to guard against land grabs and transfers of wealth during these hard times. Progressive programs and financing are powerful tools for justice and for equity. People say you have to agitate and legislate. As representation, I intend to respond to the demands of the movement for racial justice, climate justice, and Native rights to protect land and water.
Thank you. Yeah. From your introduction earlier, it sounds like you have some experience in that area with your parents being denied bank financing for their grocery store. I can see how that would still be a part of your memory and part of your goals today. It leads us to our third prepared question, which is there is so much national coverage right now. You talked about Black Lives Matter and youth having a voice. One of the things that we're not hearing as much about is voting. And can you really talk to us and explain why voting and representation are so important to you personally?
Well, when I think about the lives that have been lost by people who actually, came before me, and even with my grandmother era, where people were turned away, they couldn't vote, or they had intimidation happen. I saw that a Black woman in Georgia stood in line for 10 and a half hours to vote. That speaks to a level of resistance that voting represents for Black people. That's our history. And 10 and a half hours is a picture of where we are here now in 2020. Representation in government is imperative. Right now, we're seeing a lack of representation and the destruction of a president who has inflamed the nation. So this lack of representation makes the movement for Black Lives Matter imperative as well. The attacks on the integrity of our voting system, the voter suppression, the intimidation must be met with firm determination to place our votes and to demand representation. Remember, voting is one day, and there are 365 days a year to organize for making the changes and getting the policies we need. We need to discuss what best serves the people's needs in our communities, and our opinions and demands needs to be represented. This process can create a system which your vote is meaningful and more powerful.
Thank you. We appreciate you tying in the connection between your goals and your personal philosophy to the value of voting and why that would matter in this particular election. That is the end of our formal questions. We do have 2 questions from the audience that I'd like to ask you. Again, you will have 2 minutes each for each individual question. The first question from the audience asks, how would a Green New Deal benefit specifically our community and save our budget?
Well, the new Green Deal is more of a healthy plan. It attacks fossil, it attacks transportation with all the smoke and the smudge that goes into the air. It's not healthy. So the idea is to put mechanisms in play that will reduce fossil use, where we will start seeing more electric cars, where we will start having better, healthy air. And of course, we need to look at our climate overall. And we know it's climate change. We know it's bad. For what we've suffered for these last 3, 4, 5 years with more hurricanes and more tornadoes and people losing their homes and more fires, and that is really telling. And so with the Green New Plan, we have the ability then to look at what types of jobs are going to come out of that. We need to then start looking at retraining our people. Our education has got to come up to par and take all these things in consideration. More solar needs to be happening too as well. So with all of these and more, we will then be able to have a much more healthier society, and we will be healthier as people.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. That is the end of our prepared questions and questions from the audience. At this time, we'd like to give you a few minutes to share anything that we have not asked you about this evening that you believe is very relevant for people to know about you personally and or your campaign. You have the floor.
Well, I'd like to talk about briefly about my top priorities. When I take office, I'm going to start. My priority number one is the high capital rate of homelessness and the lack of housing, with more and more of our people going out and losing their homes and through evictions. We have seniors that have been in their houses for a long time, raised their children, grow in those homes, and now they are losing their homes and having to become the new gray homeless population. That's pretty scary. My second one is this pandemic. It has exposed gaps in healthcare. Millions have lost their healthcare due to losing their jobs. And that needs to change. I support a single pay system. I think it's a lot more fair, and it would help the majority of us stay healthy. And my last one, of course, as I've already talked about, is climate. We really need to pay more attention to what is happening. I'm glad that the CETA has been fully funded, which is a Clean Energy Transformation Act. And these bills include ending the use of coal for energy by 2020 and getting to zero carbon emissions for energy population by 2045. So those are my three priorities when I assume my position.
All righty. Well, Ms. Sutton, we want to thank you on behalf of the people in the greater community of Seattle for taking time to share your views and your opinions, your platform, and your goals. We wish you the best in your candidacy, and we thank you again.
All right, go students. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I was in education for quite a while, and I just love those ideas and visions that people as students bring to the table. So thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, Ms. Sutton. All righty, thank you so much. And as mentioned in our programming, and as we shared with you through all of our social media outlets, we had three candidates for this evening. Our last candidate for this evening is April Berg. April is running to represent the 44th Legislative District encompassing Snohomish County. Ms. Berg has lived in Snohomish County for more than 20 years. She is a school board director for the Edmonds School District and a director at the Everett School District. Ms. Berg has been a planning commissioner, a former business owner, and even an aerospace program manager. Unfortunately, due to these existing responsibilities, she actually could not make it tonight due to a board meeting. We do have a video clip prepared for Ms. Berg, and we're going to show you that right now.
Hi, I'm April Berg, and I'm running for the Washington State House of Representatives for the 44th Legislative District that covers Mill Creek, Lake Stevens, the city of Snohomish, a little part of Marysville, and a little part of Everett. I'm a Everett School Board Director and a former School Board Director for Edmonds. I'm also a Mill Creek City Planning Commissioner. I sit on Seattle Children's Theater Board of Trustees, and I'm on the Snohomish County Juvenile Justice Cultural Competency Board. I tell you all this because I wear a lot of hats, but the most important hat is as a mom to 6 beautiful kids, and me and my family have lived in Snohomish County for over 20 years. I tell you, when this public health crisis hit, it hit our area first. My daughter's high school was the first high school in the nation to have a COVID positive student. I was thrust into immediate national leadership. I wrote a survey asking what did parents need in this time of crisis in terms of food, in terms of childcare, and most importantly, right, in terms of continuous learning. As a result, we were able to provide thousands of laptops and hotspots, over 200,000 meals, and emergency childcare for first responders and frontline workers. I tell you that because that's the kind of advocacy that I'm going to bring to Olympia, and honestly, that's why I'm running. But I'm also a former small business owner. I used to own a bed and breakfast. And so I know what it is, what it's like to be the person paying the bills, signing the checks. I have walked a mile in your shoes. I'm also a former aerospace employee. I worked for the Boeing company for many years. So I understand the importance of aerospace to our community and to our economy. That's really why I'm running, because my life experience represents my district, a commitment to community, a believer in strong public schools, and an understanding of small business and aerospace. I think another question that you might have on your mind today is some of the conversations that we're having around policing and police reform and police accountability. Well, I'm proud to say that I've been very vocal on this subject, talking about reimagining policing. And that reimagining could come with redirecting some funding towards more mental health services, substance abuse, and our homeless crisis. Honestly, we need to talk about how we're truly keeping our community safe. I think a big first step was the passage of I-940 that dealt with police accountability and making more avenues for accountability and transparency. And those are the types of laws that I'm going to support in the legislature. We need to have folks more transparent and more accountable when it comes to criminal justice. Lastly, I think a lot of folks have been asking me about how do we get our youth to vote? How do we get our youth more active? Well, I'll tell you, as a candidate and as a candidate with a passion for education, that has been top of mind. One of the things I talk to youth about all the time is that elections matter. Everything is on the line. And so you've got to speak up and speak out and get active now more than ever. One of the things my campaign is doing is holding a series of youth town halls. I've done this for months. My last one will be coming up on Wednesday. It's a way for youth to not only talk about their grievances and share their lived experience, but it's an opportunity for them to get training. I'm really proud that we've been able to train many youth on these town halls in direct action organizing, strategy, as well as having them talk with leaders in the community about how to directly get involved on issues and actions that are important to them. So again, for me, it's all about engaging youth, explaining to them how important it is to be active, and then giving them avenues and tools to be active. I'm excited. I think the youth vote is going to truly rock things in this election. And I'm excited that our campaign's been a part of getting them there. So with that, I say just thank you to the Seattle Urban League for having me. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I wish I was. Tonight we're at a school board meeting talking about some really important reopening decisions. So I'm sure you'll understand. Thank you again for the opportunity to talk with you, and thank you for your support.
Thank you, and we appreciate Ms. Berg taking time to send her comments and her campaign goals and agendas over to us for you to preview. We want to thank you for tuning in to hear from our Black candidates in North King County and Snohomish County. Again, this is brought to you by the Black Candidate Forum, supported by the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Zeta Pi Lambda Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated Alumni Chapter, and Bird Place, Bar Place, and Seattle King County NAACP. We also want to thank you listening through Rainier Avenue Radio for broadcasting this forum. Again, as a reminder, this was not to endorse or support any one specific candidate, but simply to highlight how representation matters. To register to vote, there's some key information that you can find about your ballot, and to make sure you do it on time, please go to urbanleague.org. Again, that's www.urbanleague.org. Look under the Civic Engagement tab, and you can find information about registering to vote. We are now less than 2 weeks away until Election Day. Please register today if you have not done so, as the registration deadline to be able to vote is only 6 days away. Again, please vote and submit your ballot early. We thank you for joining. Good night.
Thank you for tuning in to the Snohomish County Black Candidate Forum with your moderator, Thomas Brown. We'd like to thank the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle for putting on these 3 forums for King County, Snohomish, and Pierce County, which you heard right here on Rainier Avenue Radio as a part of our community election connection. The debates will continue on our station on Thursday. You can tune in at 8 p.m. for the Lieutenant Governor debates, which will be happening at 8 p.m. on Thursday. And then on Friday at 6 p.m., tune in for the Superintendent of Public Instruction debate on Friday at 6 p.m. We'll have more debates for you the following week. Scheduled, we have at 29th, Thursday next week, is the legislative 37th District State Representative Position 1 debate at 7 p.m. And Friday the 30th, we have scheduled King County Superior Court Judge debate for Position 13 debate at 7 o'clock. We also have more events to announce, so stay tuned to your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio, for more announcements by going to our website, RainierAvenueRadio.world. All the events will be announced there, including an upcoming Halloween event on the 31st. So stay tuned right here. You can also download our app. Just search Rainier Avenue Radio. That's for iPhone and Android users. One click, download it, and as soon as you launch the app, it'll start playing our station. You can also listen to our station, of course, on our website by going to the upper right corner. There is a player for you to play. And we also broadcast on Facebook Live with a lot of live broadcasts right here on Rainier Avenue Radio. A quick shout out, of course, to our sponsors who we love, the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, Seattle Academy of Arts and Sciences, and of course, Shunpike. The Sean Teichner Show will be up next at 7 o'clock, but we'll entertain you with some great jazz music until then. So thank you for tuning in tonight for the Snohomish County Black Candidate Forum. This is Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station. Thank you for tuning in to Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station. We invite you to switch over to our app. Just download that for free for iPhone, Android users. Just search Rainier Avenue Radio. And to go to our website, RainierAvenueRadio.world. There's a player in the upper right corner that you can play anytime. Up next on our station is the Sean Tashner Show. Thank you for listening in to the Snohomish County Black Candidate Forum. Thank you all. Good night.